Ujima. You're listening to the Cruising Show on Ujima 98 FM with me, Jenny. YI sounds just gone 5:05. Joined in the studio by a very special guest, Mr. Tony Gosling.
Hi, Jenny. Hiya. Yeah, thank you for calling me special. I'm just me, you know.
Tony is a freelance journalist and member of secretary of BHAM, Bristol Housing Action Movement. We had Matt from BHAM in a few weeks ago, giving us a bit of an introduction to the van vehicles, people living in vehicles in Bristol. When I first moved to Bristol, which is probably 20 years old now, Tony's one of the first people I met at a squat on Coronation Road. I used to go to the BHAM meetings every Monday when I first moved, because I was living in a van. Stuff.
Oh, well,
so
I did
local legend, Mr. Tony Gosling.
We care about housing in Bristol. Yeah. Unfortunately, we need to still persuade the City Council to.
Yes, well, I'm going to leave that in your capable hands. Remember, Jenny's job is to not be biased.
Yeah, I can't. I'm going to be.
And my job is to be biased.
No, well,
no, but not too much. Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you.
That is true, though. Yeah, that's true. I've got to be a little bit on the fence. So yeah, sorry, Tony. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit about BHAM.
Just about the journalism first. I was from 2000 till 2008 secretary of the National Union of Journalists in Bristol branch, which was fascinating, dealing with the problems that journalists were having from the people who own the presses, the people that own the transmitters. You know, they can be problematic and they can cause trouble for journalists. And so that was a fascinating insight into the city, really, and how it works.
And how much has changed since then as well. Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, these were the days of the Bristol. It was actually called the Evening Post. But anyway. The changes have also, I mean, HTV, for example, was producing drama series in the 1980s, fantastic stuff. But we've tried very hard, I think, over the years to speak for the listeners and the viewers, and you get a lot of pressure as a journalist to do the opposite, which is to just regurgitate what the funders, the advertisers, the sponsors, the owners want you to think and want you to say. There's a big organisation called Bristol Media, which we were part of, and you just felt it was totally dominated by the advertisers, people with billboards. But look, for me, housing is the key thing. You know, if you don't have a safe, secure roof over your head or somewhere to stay, whether it's in a caravan you're not under threat of eviction, this can blight your life.
Food and shelter, isn't it? It's the two most basic, important needs.
And so BHAM was set up in the 1970s, doing activities, occupations, and we quite quickly found that the law around squatting was probably the most important thing to tool homeless people up with. So you know what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And even to this day, BHAM still goes to court, not to every case, a possession order or enforcement notice or whatever, but we still do go to court quite regularly if we think there's a chance that we can either extend someone's stay in a squat or on land. And we quite often achieve that. And in fact, sometimes the judges are quite surprised to see somebody there because, the squatters are marginalised. Yeah, homeless people are marginalised. They often can't get their act together or they're afraid to go to court.
And that was one of the great things about BHAM, the weekly meetings. And this is obviously going back a few years when squatting wasn't illegal. And you wouldn't get the laws.
Okay, so the laws changed by Ken Clark in 2012 to make residential...
Was it 2012?
Yeah.
Oh,
residential squatting. Residential squatting was made illegal.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that squatting land or squatting
I guess it made it more difficult, didn't it? And, and that was the thing about BHAM. It would help people basically actually secure a roof and somewhere to live, which is a bit harder now.
I'll let you into a little secret. One of the places that we were originally involved with is now owned by the people that squatted it, so they've never paid a penny for that. It's in Armoury Square. I probably shouldn't say this. There's a house in Armoury Square which was squatted for about something like 7 or 8 years. Then there was a little bit of an attempt to keep it by somebody who didn't own it, someone to move in. But after, I think it was 12 years, they got adverse possession. They got the deeds to the place.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really keen actually for yourself, and I don't know if either of the two. Am I allowed to say the two Jims, or are they anonymous? I've just said it. It would be great actually if someone wanted to come in and talk a bit more about squatting and what actually is legal and what because people don't really know.
Well, the quick way is the Squatter's Handbook, which you can get from
AK
been
published
Press
for years and years.
AK Press, you can get it second hand, or probably on eBay, places like that. But also from ASS, Advisory Service for Squatters in London, who publish it. And this brings, there's a new edition out about 18 months ago, which is all bang up to date on squatting land and squatting houses. Now, this is because we don't want people in the street, in doorways, anywhere. And, that's one of the, I think over the years we've achieved, I think we've housed thousands of people, helped house, should we say, because what we do is we just give them, I hope, the tools to get into somewhere reasonably secure, even if it's for a fairly short period of time, in order to get their act together.
I remember you used to do a lot of work with people coming out of prison and people in prison as well for their release.
Ex-squaddies, quite a lot of them.
I'd love to talk more about that. Let's save a bit more of that conversation for another day. You're here today. We're focusing on van dwellers in Bristol,
on the Downs.
The Downs, and there was a court case recently that you were at. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it was a series of hearings instituted by Bristol City Council's legal department. Robin Denford is their solicitor. And they, rather than what a landlord will normally do, and they should do in this case, is get a possession order. That is to say, look, we own this land, we now want the right to bring bailiffs in and move the people who are on the land. And they could easily have done that last July, but they decided they were going to be very clever and spend a lot of money and get an injunction to keep people off the land completely for at least a year into the future.
And was this driven by local residents living up in Clifton?
Yeah, that's right. Well, Protect the Downs was set up by, I would say, the merchant venturers who actually own the Downs. So the way the Downs is managed here, at the moment there's a big circus up there. I think it's still
when I saw the campaign name Protect the Downs, it's like, the people there, they want to keep the Downs for nature, but then you have these huge circuses and events, which obviously proves it's not quite the motivation.
Yeah, exactly. It's commercial. But the reason people are there is because over the last 3 years, really, COVID was a amnesty. There were no evictions during COVID. It wasn't allowed. But after COVID, with the big sites that were around the city, that is, there are 3 or 4 big traveller sites which are out of the way, self-managed sites, people living there for free, usually ex-public land. They were then evicted, and the last eviction was about a year ago from the gasworks site in Lockleys, Dover Court Road. And so around about 200 people in caravans and vehicles over those were evicted. And so hence you've got the Downs, right? Hence so people want somewhere to go. They don't want to be necessarily in the street under people's noses. And so they go to somewhere like the Downs, which is out of the way. So the Downs is owned by the merchant venturers, the old slave trading Edward Colston Brigade up at the Promenade. Is where they live.
Yeah, I've been up to the house in Clifton. I've got some funny stories I could tell you about my time up there. It is an interesting spot, and they did used to do tours on the open days up there. But anyway, they were involved very much in the slave trade. The journalists find it very difficult to understand who they are because they are constituted under a royal charter, not in the Companies Act, so you can't really investigate them. You have to go to the Privy Council if you want to get any information about them. The Privy Council don't tell you anything. So it's an ancient slave trading organisation, but owns the Downs. So they're quite sensitive about getting bad publicity from evicting people from the Downs. So what they've quite cleverly done is moved... Hid behind the residents.
They've moved... Well, I think so, yeah. And this is the point, is the merchant venturers were the first to say, we are the ones to protect the Downs, right? And so then the Protect the Downs group emerged with this Protect the Downs. Of course...
Butterflies and
anyone wants
bumblebees.
Anyone wants to see what's going on, really. It's got the merchants behind it.
Yeah.
So that was a fascinating little exercise, figuring out who... So there is a thing called the Downs Committee, which is public, you can go along to, which is where the merchant venturers sit down next to the city council councillors and some nominated people and manage the downs. But they realised, this is difficult. We can't try and organise the evictions through this committee because people will realise the merchant venturers are involved. So they've got the city council legal department and the council officers to do the whole process and to try and get this injunction. Anyway, the week before last, they failed. The judge actually was very strict with them, and he said, "No, you're not getting an injunction." So he's saying, "Yes, you can have possession of the land, but you're not putting an injunction in there."
And an injunction would have meant that a van could have pulled up, the police could have been sent, and they could have been carted off straight away.
Somebody who didn't know anything about it from out of the city. First place they stop is the Downs.
Which looks like a sensible place to begin,
and suddenly they're pounced on by the police and arrested. So this is it. It had the power of arrest. And the judge just said, no, we're not having this. This is not necessary. I'll give you possession of the land for the people who are there right now. So we felt this is a victory, really. But it had taken goodness knows how much money of the council's effort doing this for the merchants. So this is the irony of the whole thing here. The council's duty as a public service is to be housing people. So they ended up becoming arresting homeless people.
Yeah.
So this is how captured the city council has been, I think, by the merchants and by the commercial interest in the city.
So in terms of, the injunction hasn't been granted, but there are powers to keep people can't just go and pull up and stay indefinitely, can they?
No, there's a limited period now where they will be slowly removing people from the down. There's around about 45 people up there, I think, at the moment. And
did I read somewhere that you get like a 21 days to
they have
vacate?
given so the other thing we've managed to achieve just by bothering to go to court, actually, it was lovely to see the judge scribbling in his judgment exactly what I was asking for, which was we want QR codes on the enforcement orders. So there's a council webpage so everyone, including the press, can see where these evictions are taking place, where and when. And so the whole thing is done publicly and openly. So that was, I think, quite a victory. As far as I know, that's the first time in the country we've ever had a council instructed, or anyone really, instructed to put all their plans for an eviction and enforcement up in public.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what the lack of an injunction means that once this process is completed, that if people then from outside the city or who weren't living up there before turn up, then they won't be part of this possession order.
So they could stay there. Well,
the council will have to start the process again, maybe.
Yeah,
but the point is, most of the people have gone from the Downs anyway because of this publicity around this court case.
Are there any other areas in Bristol that they were seeking to be able to use injunctions?
Yeah, they are. They're not injunctions, but they are seeking possession orders all over the place. So there are pockets. Yeah, there are pockets of groups of travellers around the city which they've been evicting over the last few months. Now, the guy who's in charge of this at the council is Kurt James. He's the head of enforcement. And this is what, when you start looking into this, it gets murkier and murkier. Kurt was employed by Marvin Rees, the mayor, a few years ago.
Who?
Kurt James. He's the guy from the council who's in charge of enforcement. Kurt was initially employed to prosecute people for fly tipping. So there's a sort of nasty side to this. So what are you now saying, that travellers are fly tipped waste? You know, there's something sort of rather nasty. Anyway, what we would like to see, and this is just a very basic thing. There's loads of areas of unused land around the city where we just want to see deals done with the landowners if they're not using them in their land banks, basically.
I think as the lands behind.
To go there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these Matt Strange mentioned about these meanwhile sites.
Yes.
What's that all about?
There's a competition between us and the council as to how to deal with the travellers in the city. They want to set up these big fenced compounds with CCTV.
Oh, CCTV! I didn't know that part.
And so the idea is that the van dwellers, caravanners, can come and have a little pitch in there. No, they're not allowed to have an address.
Pay council tax though.
And now pay council tax.
But no address.
£2,000 a year council tax, not given an address. I mean, it really is, and it seems an attempt to just squeeze money out of people who haven't got very much, and that's why they're in a caravan. So that has not been that popular They've got lots of sites. They keep announcing we're going to make this into a meanwhile site, but they haven't filled up the existing sites. So there's a lot of travellers are just thinking, well, we don't want anything to do with these compounds. They're also asking them to charge rent £30 a week, which is not a lot, but for some people it is a lot. And anyway, there's no guarantee that rent's going to stay the same. The councils know, it doesn't keep its word.
Yeah.
Then, and on the other side of all this, you've got the Irish travellers.
Yeah, which is another different demographic.
They are. We keep seeing stories in the Bristol Post and elsewhere about, travellers have popped up here. Well, that's because Bristol City Council has evicted the Irish Travellers Transit site at Avonmouth,
right?
Where there's pitches for about 40 vans there, but they've evicted the whole site. So the Irish travellers have
got to go somewhere.
Yeah, of course. So, but this is, so anyway, we're working on trying to get something done about this with councillors, etc. But in a green city, this is not a good look for the Green councillors and for the Green Party in the city, because they're supposed to be caring for the poorer and particularly the marginalised. Bristol's trying to make itself a city of culture and human rights, and yet what are they doing to the marginalised travellers, gypsies, etc.? It's if you start to scratch the surface, you find it's all about corporate speculators and developers. They're the ones who the council really likes.
Let's go to a track now, and then we'll have a little bit more time to scratch a little bit more below the surface. Stay tuned in. Just gone 5:20. You're listening to the Cruising Show on Ujima 98 FM with Jenny YI Sounds, joined in the studio by Tony Gosling. Ujima 98 FM. Just coming up to 5:25, you're listening to the Cruising Show on Ujima 98. That was Ghost Town Specials, the Fevers Lockdown Mix. On the roads, Portway Clifton, usual slow traffic inbound before the centre of Bristol. Travel time's about an extra 15 minutes on top of what it would be. Good news though, the M32 is now back to normal, so plain sailing hopefully for the rest of the day. Joined in the studio still by Tony Gosling, freelance journalist and secretary of BHAM, Bristol Housing Action Movement. We've just been talking about the recent court case up in the Downs to stop people living in vehicles up there, and a success by all accounts.
Well, it is. Whenever the council's going to get a possession order to evict 45 people when they really should be housing them, that it's not totally a success. But what the council were trying to do was up the ante and get this injunction, which they failed. So we consider it a success because we need to teach the council a lesson. This is public money they're spending on trying to do something which the courts, even without any actual defendants appearing in court, are saying, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And you can't. The judge actually said this is bad law, right, what you're trying to do here. But they were being greedy. And so,
is that... What's the council's public explanation for going ahead with this court case?
Well, they say, and Protect the Downs say, funnily enough, they seem to be totally aligned, the council and Protect the Downs, is that people have been using the Downs as a toilet.
Right.
Now, the council have toilets up at the Downs, but they say we have to lock them at 5 o'clock every evening because it costs more because they get damaged and vandalised if you leave them up later. Well, they haven't said how much it costs to clear up when people do use the Downs as a toilet. Most people in vans and caravans don't, of course. The vast majority have got their own little chemical toilets or whatever to use. Yeah. And so this is the idea, I think, is to create this nasty atmosphere in the press. They're using this to sort of demonise people who live like this, same as they do to the Irish travellers all the time. Yeah. So that's, I think, that's that was what they were using to try and push this case. But
there was the van dwellers vehicle policy that came out last year, didn't it? That the Bristol City Council setting out some kind of things that it was aiming for. We were just talking in the break a little bit about what people living in vans, the kind of solutions that they're looking for. And
so with the meanwhile sites, there have been problems, these council compounds that they've been asking people to move into and pay rent and council tax, right?
And CCTV, that's nuts. That's crazy.
Horrible. Also spot checks on visitors. We want your identity, please.
So are they suggesting security and stuff potentially?
Well, when council people, employees are on site, they have been doing spot checks on who's there. So who are you? Why are you here? Well, I'm a visitor. Well, anyway, so people have been getting quite dissatisfied with this. Also, one of the sites had its water contaminated. There's just one standpipe for everyone to use. So it's pretty primitive for council tax, for expecting council tax. Anyway, so a lot of the van dwellers, caravanners have decided that they want to get together to buy land, possibly, or rent land to create their own community sites that they run. Because the thing is, the people that live like this, many of them have lived on site for years and years. They know how to manage.
Yeah, highly skilled, like people.
Well, and also relations between people. So, you know, if someone's making a lot of noise late at night, someone turns up and starts drug dealing, something like that, how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Now, this self-managing of sites is almost like a community memory that people are losing. And, of course, when the council step in and say, we're going to manage this site of 20 people, the Meanwhile site or whatever, then you get no say, virtually, in the way the site's managed. So people like managing their own spaces. And that's what they're planning to do, to get together maybe 20, 30 people, rent or buy land and manage their own space.
Fantastic.
Now, getting planning permission is a whole nother problem.
That's the next. We're running out of time a little bit. It's just coming up to 5:30, unfortunately. Could will you come back in and talk?
Oh, go on. I suppose. Yes, I'm sure I can at some point.
Just before you go though, how can people find out more about BHAM, Bristol Housing Action Movement?
Well, we're based at the moment at the People's Republic of Stokes Croft, so we meet there 8 o'clock in the yard every Monday.
Still Mondays
evenings. Oh yeah.
That's been going on for decades and decades.
It's about 50 years.
Yeah,
something like that. It's been happening, and the idea is people get together to meet others. Some of us are doing more of the support work, going to court, that sort of thing, and others are just meeting other people to squat with, or else to sort their housing with, one sort or another, trying to access caravans. But the idea is, look, let's get together in a friendly little group and help you get your housing problems sorted. I think, to be quite frank with you, the council really should pay for what we do, and we are there because they actually see the homeless as almost like the enemy, the problem. They don't really want to deal with us. We had Paul Smith as the head of the housing at Bristol City Council for quite a long time. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. He realised he couldn't actually get council houses built in the city, so they seem to be acting almost like private landlords of their own personal private Bristol property, the council. So that's why we do what we do. So we've got a Facebook group. If you look for Bristol Housing Action Movement or BHAM, BHAM, you'll find us there on the dreaded Zuckerberg nightmare department.
And you're on Instagram as well.
Are we?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I didn't realise that.
I tagged you in a post today.
Anyways, and also there's an actual website, believe it or not, a real website called squatbristol.org.uk, which has got all the basic contact details for us. Ultimately, we want to make sure that if people come to a meeting, they get housed.
Yeah.
By fair means, well, not by fair.
By any means necessary.
By whatever. I mean, let's think about the housing crisis the way it is. We've also got loads of commercial property empty right now. Think about St. Philip's.
I'd love to think about St. Philip's, but it's coming up to 32 minutes past 5. I've got to put the news on. Thanks so much for your time, Tony.
It's a no-brainer. You've got people need homes and empty places. Put them 2 and 2 together. Come on.
It's not rocket science. Thank you very much. Let's go to the news now. And Tony will be back in the studio soon, I promise.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye.